Hi. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Yvette Morataya. I am the Outreach Director for Informed Immigrant. If you haven't joined us before, Informed Immigrant is an online platform created specifically for the immigrant community to find resources on know your rights, family preparedness, organizations near them, really just information in general, like policy changes, so like DACA, TPS, public charge, etc. So I really encourage folks to go onto our platform, that's informedimmigrant.com or inmigranteinformado.com for Spanish. If you haven't joined any of our live streams before, we've had a few in the past that range from Know Your Rights to mental health in the immigrant community and any of the DACA updates. So I encourage you to go onto our Facebook page and look at informedimmigrant.com, and you can find some of our past live streams. Today, we will be discussing TPS and all of the developments that have been happening with the program, as well as how to get involved with the advocacy around it and how to stay informed with just all of the changes that have been happening. I just want to set the expectations and remind folks that we are not lawyers. We're simply providing information that is very critical and important for the immigrant community. I encourage you to reach out to Adikar. Today, however, is Mega Lama, who is the immigration organizer at Adikar. So I'm very excited for her to be joining us today. I just want to remind folks that we won't be answering any personal questions, but we will be taking general questions. So Mega, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that Adikar does?
Hello, hi everybody. Good afternoon. That's all in the East Coast. My name is Megha. I am the immigration organizer at Adikar. Adikar means rights in Nepali. We are the only women-led organization that fights and organizes the Nepali-speaking community here in New York and all over the United States. We are based in Queens, New York. Our office is here in Queens. And we basically do our four program areas, our workers' rights, immigrant rights, affordable healthcare, and then language justice. Our main members are mostly TPS holders, temporary protected status holders, and domestic workers, nail salon workers, gas station workers, and restaurant workers, and Uber drivers. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. This is our first time doing it with a different organization that's non-Nepali on Facebook. So this is such a great opportunity for us. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for joining us. As I mentioned before, I'm very excited to have you joining us today and to be hearing about the work that you've been doing with Adikar and just the work in general that you guys have been leading. So let's get started. For folks that maybe haven't heard about the temporary protected status known as TPS, can you tell us a little bit about the program?
Sure. So TPS, or temporary protected status, is a life-saving immigration status that allows immigrants to remain in the U.S. With work or authorization. And this is given to countries, if something catastrophic has happened in that country of origin, preventing their safe return back to their native country. So when I say catastrophic, similar to like any political unrest, natural disaster, or any epidemic. TPS allows people to work legally and be protected from deportation. And this program was created by Congress in the year 1990 Immigration Act. And currently there are nearly 400,000 TPS holders from 10 countries. Although Trump terminated the program for 6 countries already since his administration. There's litigation protecting 6 countries out of the 10 countries right now.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Oh, and folks that, are not sure which countries that falls into the TPS is, I'm just going to say the names, Syria, Yemen, Somalia, South Sudan, Nicaragua, Liberia, Nepal, Haiti, El Salvador, Honduras. So these are the countries, and some of these have been on the litigation, fighting for the litigation that are protected. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for telling us a little bit about the background of TPS and the countries that currently exist under that qualify for it. So now that we know a little bit about that, can you tell us what some of the recent developments are? Because I know that there's been a lot happening, especially under this administration.
Sure. Sorry, I forgot to mention like who like qualifies for the program. So let
Mhm.
me just
Oh
give
yeah,
a little bit of
please.
information on that, and then I'm going to move into the recent developments. So if you are a national of any of these countries that I mentioned earlier, have received TPS, they have been continuously present in the country since the designation, and there are also security checks behind qualifying. So you have to go through, all the processes that with the entry and all of those parts. While TPS provides protection for short periods, only up to like 18 months, for the countries at issue in the lawsuit, which are in the lawsuit right now, U.S. government has extended TPS repeatedly for at least 8 years. And in the case of most countries, for more than 15 years. And this is based on repeated findings that it remains unsafe to return back to the native country. Thus, most TPS holders have been living in this country for over a decade. Like this is,
Wow.
this is a really long period of time, and raising families here and going to school, working, being active members of their communities. And there are also over 200,000 U.S. citizen children of TPS holders, and these children have often never been back to the country where the parents are from. And TPS impacts like so many people more than just the 400 we described. It's like it's a ripple effect that has been happening. So those are the ones that in terms of like qualifying, and we also had members who have been who have citizen born children
Mhm.
that are not able to go back, or haven't seen Nepal for a really long time, and how are they going to survive? How are they going to survive without their parents here, right? So those
Yeah.
are the things that we've been working on.
Mhm.
And yeah, moving on to like the recent development that you mentioned, since taking of office, President Donald Trump has terminated TPS for over 95% of all TPS holders. And some of these has been like racist motivations, right? Part of a
Mhm.
systemic elimination of pro-immigrant policy and targeting of immigrant communities. And the National TPS Alliance, which is a group of TPS holders that have been organizing for many, many years already, with ACLU Southern California and Endolin, which is a National Day Labor Organizing Network, filed Ramos versus Nielsen in 2018. That was after terminating the TPS by Trump administration, right? So they filed a lawsuit, and that kind of protected these TPS holders from four countries. And the four countries are Haiti, Sudan, Nicaragua, and El Salvador. And after that, Adikar worked with the partner organizations leading on Ramos and with the IUPAT, which is a painters union. We were able to work on the Bhattarai versus Nielsen lawsuit. So we filed a lawsuit also in terms of with the Nepali TPS holders. And we also had partnered with Advancing Justice Asian Law Caucus. And this was from Honduras and Nepal in 2019. And we began working on the lawsuit in the late 2018, figuring out like who can be the strongest plaintiff, right? Who can
Mhm.
be like the spokesperson, what kind of families we want to look into. And so that journey has been really great for also Adikar to learn about a lot of like the TPS families that have been affected. And the lawsuit basically is like plaintiffs that are group of brave TPS holders and their children representing the 6 countries. And the recent development, that was the background, like how the lawsuit was formed. And recently, Ninth Circuit ruled that the preliminary injunction holding status in place should be removed, giving TPS holders until March of 2021 before status ends. So basically, the lawsuit that was going on and the different hearings that was happening within the Ninth District Court, that was not in our favor. The decision was not in our favor. And we had to, we had given the time, which is March 2021, to stay safely in the US. And our legal teams right now are filing an appeal to these decisions to continue the fight and extend that date further. And so, right now we are in that process of, working with plaintiffs, working with the legal team, all of these groups that have helped us to bring the lawsuit. So we're going to do a request for an appeal to the district. And so as we are going, we will know the recent, updates depending on the timing. We have, I believe, 45 days to request for rehearing. So within that 45 days, we will be, preparing everything that we need to have in order to request for the rehearing. So that has been the work, and all of the TPS holder organization, TPS holders, we've been organizing, we've been bringing more stories. We've been bringing stories of essential workers that are TPS holders. We've been organizing within the ground and in the policy level with like senators, requesting meetings with senators, educating them on what the urgency is right now for TPS holders and also DACA recipients. So we have been working in that direction right now in organizing policy and legislation work.
Yeah. Thank you, Megha, for the explanation on the recent developments. I mean, that's a lot, especially for TPS holders right now. Like you mentioned, those are at least 400,000 people who are directly impacted, and that's not even to say their children, their families, their co-workers. I mean, you've said that some of these are essential workers, and immigrants take up a huge component of essential workers. So not only are they directly impacted, but the community around them will also be impacted if these folks are no longer here. If we're talking about March 2021, which is literally around the corner. Right, like that is extremely scary to be hearing as a community member, but also thinking about people who are directly impacted, like how much uncertainty that brings into their lives, So I do want to point people towards some mental health resources that we have on informedimmigrant.com. You can find those on there. They don't speak directly to TPS, but they do speak to the immigrant experience. So I encourage you to go on there. It's just, I know that this is a lot of information to take on. So again, thank you so much for explaining that. I do want you to remind folks who was impacted by the policy changes that comes with the Ramos case.
Oh, so the countries that were impacted are Nicaragua, Sudan, Haiti, El Salvador, Nepal, and Honduras. So these are the countries that, were with the Ramos versus Nielsen and Butterai versus Nielsen lawsuit together. And, these countries, although we can see that we have these countries as, from like looking at like the global perspective, there's still, it's political unrest, right? The disaster and then the added pandemic has created really uncertainty and really not safe to go back. So how can the administration move towards deciding on bringing these people back to those countries, right? So it's yeah. But anyway, I also wanted to add on the legislation work that we had been doing for TPS and DACA recipients. We have American Dream and Promise Act that was passed in the House. I believe it was June 2019. So the bill was called HR 6, and that was passed in the House of Representatives. And, that has not really moved into the Senate yet. So we are also working on organizing folks to work on the legislation part, passing this legislation or introducing this legislation in the Senate. We have been trying to get all the meetings with senators, right, educating them, as I mentioned earlier, but there hasn't been a luck to us to even get into their doors. So it has been really hard. But we can't stop. Our folks with the TPS Alliance, they've been going right now for Journey to Justice, which is they're basically doing a bus tour to educate each and every members in the states to about the TPS, and then their families, and also I think that they're educating on why election is very important this year. So that has been going on, on the ground. We've also had a lot of like advocates that are working on the policy level, and that are bringing TPS extension and DACA protection, like the EAD extension, which is like the work
Mm-hmm.
authorization extension, in every COVID package bill that comes through, which has not been successful, but we are also working on that end, in terms of protecting the TPS and DACA recipients.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I used to do organizing work here in Illinois, which is where I'm based. So I respect the work that you're doing, especially because right now sharing stories and hearing from people who are directly impacted is extremely important. And having meetings with people who do make decisions around this, again, is extremely important because they're the ones who are deciding on the future of more than 400,000 individuals and their families. So again, thank you for telling us a little bit about the work and the movement and organizing that's being done behind the TPS community so that they know that there are people that are working with them and that are fighting for them, which is always something that we want folks to know. So going into our next question, what are the top things that TPS recipients should know or should remember?
Yeah, so TPS is still in effect, so they should not panic or, do something that is not going to be a good decision on their end. So we want to make sure that it is, even the lawsuit has not been in our favor. There's still time to think about, do we want to change our status into a different one so that we can be protected? Do we want to consult an immigration attorney in the meantime, right? What's going to happen to my kids if I'm not in the country? So those are the education part we have been doing, and I think people don't need to panic right away. But instead of panicking, I think they should get involved in the TPS organizing and advocacy work. We are also looking at an emergency plan for families, for business owners, for folks who have bought houses in here, right? They have, property, all of these things like financial support. So we've been looking at like bringing on to an emergency plan in terms of protecting all of this and make sure that they do not lose anything, right? What they've earned. Also, we don't want to think that the TPS holders are all alone. I mean, we have, like, I can say in terms of like Nepali TPS holders, that Adikar, even though we are based in New York, we have been, reaching out to all of the TPS holders that are in Colorado, that are in Texas, that are in Pennsylvania, right? So we want to make sure that we are doing that work as we move forward with the progress.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we also have partnered with a lot of the immigration organization that are like Undocu Black Network, African Communities Together, Haitian Bridge Alliance, TPS Alliance, right? All of these organizations have been doing the work in every level, whether it's educating the community, doing Know Your Rights event, bringing the right materials to the community, bringing different issues that can connect with the TPS work, right? We've been doing all of that with all these different organizations, and we've also been doing a lot of work in bringing TPS. I mean, TPS and DACA is not like the same status. However, we
Mm-hmm.
are uniting so that we can work together and become more
Yeah.
stronger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people when they think about TPS, they tend to compare the two because they're temporary statuses. But as you mentioned, they're very completely different programs, but they are uniting forces right now to make sure that we are protecting both communities. But I like that you mentioned that not only is Adikar working behind the TPS community, but there's just a variety of different organizations that are uniting forces and are pushing when it comes to protecting TPS holders and also empowering them and knowing that this is not the end of the fight and that there's still things that are coming as we approach the March 2021 deadline, that there's still things that are being done in their favor, and that they have support if they reach out to some of these organizations. So I just want to remind folks that Adikar is an organization that they can reach out to. They can also find organizations near them on the platform for Informed Immigrant. You can also reach out to us, and we can put you in contact with Mega, or with folks that she might recommend for you all. But again, thank you so much for sharing some of this. I know you've told us a little bit about how you all are working towards empowering TPS holders, and again, reminding them of just all of the resources that are available to them. Can you tell us a little bit about your personal experience in working with TPS holders, and working on the TPS campaign that you and Adikar are working on?
Yeah. So my work actually with the TPS holder started, since I would say 2016, since I became a staff. I was supporting in terms of like, bringing communities together, right? We had probably very like less number of folks back then, 2016, when we started organizing, because we had only gotten Nepal had only gotten 2000 the TPS in 2015 after the earthquake happened, right? So that's why our actually fight and the movement started in 2016, bringing all these communities together. We also did a lot of work with the TPS Alliance, and looking at their sort of structure, how TPS holders are the forefront and the fighters in the movement, right? They were bringing a lot of TPS holders from El Salvador, Honduras, and we had joined them to learn how they organize the TPS holders and how TPS holders have been doing this work. As I said earlier, like they've been here for like more than 20 years, right? So we got to learn from them, and then we started our own TPS committee, which is TPS holders. We have about like 21 TPS holders in our committee, and they have been with us in terms of working, fighting for workers' rights, fighting for immigrant rights. After we created this committee, it has been really great to bring their leadership, right, to build their leadership, and basically any decisions that we make in TPS, like any kind of decision that comes onto the floor, we go back to them and make sure that we are getting their feedback, we're getting their decisions on where we want to move in terms of legislation or in terms of like groundwork. So this work has been happening. We usually meet every Sundays from 3:30 to 5. This is our meeting time. And usually we do either biweekly or once a month, depending on the type of work that we have. And these TPS holders have been with us, with Adikar, since 2000, like since Adikar started, which is like 2005, right? 2007. Like they've been like a long-term Adikar members. So to have these groups now doing the leadership work is just amazing to see. We've done a lot of like town halls where they've shown their leadership, and they've organized a lot of like the events with TPS Alliance back in 2019, 18. So we've done a lot of work within our group, but we also want to bring more folks that hasn't been with us, right? Bring more new leadership that has not done the work. Like we have students who are TPS holders. We have nurses who are TPS holders. We haven't gotten like youth to organize with us, just similar to how TPS Alliance have been doing. Like the TPS Alliance youth has their own committee to do the work. So we've been bringing all these communities together, doing more a family movement, a family justice work. So that's our plan in the future, but it's also a work in progress. As we move on, we as organizers, we have to create some of these work, right? But also, not just taking like, I have started doing organizing work only after 2019. Because I was also a nail salon organizer before. But our team, who is the immigration team that we call it, we have, Narvada Petri, who is our director of programs and organizing. We have Prarthana Gurung, who is our communications and campaigns manager. She is the lead on the litigation part. Like she has been working with our plaintiff that, preparing for stories, connecting them with the legal team, all of these. Maya, who's been doing a lot of like the direct service, like inquiries about TPS is like it doesn't stop. So right now we've also gotten more inquiries from the TPS holders because they are not sure, they don't know where to go, they don't have good direction. So we have like a whole team that was working with us that has allowed, and also the leadership body that I mentioned, TPS committee, that has actually, uplifted this work. And also talking about the organizations that I just mentioned, African Communities Together, Undocu Black Network, and Haitian Bridge Alliance. We also did, back in November 2019, we did an advocacy training. We went to all these senators to share our TPS holder stories, to educate them on the HR6 or Dream and Promise Act part, right? So we've been doing that, and as we are moving, along, I think there's like more urgent needs that come up, and it is. I mean, it is what it is, but we can't stop. We can't stop just because something like that has happened. Now we got to bring more people and more folks and people from all different states. That's how we're doing.
Yeah, I think I always say that it speaks a lot to an organization when you have members that stick with you all for a really long time. And I think you mentioned that like these are folks that maybe were a little bit shy, and then like over time you've seen them grow into people who are really leading the movement and are outspoken and are making sure that their voices are being heard. So I know how extremely important it is to be able to touch base with folks who are directly impacted and to empower them into telling their story. Because like you mentioned, right now, especially around everything that's currently happening, that we're hearing from people who are directly impacted, and that we know that that because this is going to impact them, that we're hearing what they think is best for their own livelihood, right? So you also mentioned that you have had experience in working with some of the plaintiffs for the Ramos case. Can you tell us a little bit more about how or what that experience was like?
Yeah, so we did. Well, I usually talk to them in terms of like the organizing work. So whatever groundwork we share with the TPS committee here in New York, those are the work I share with them, and then I bring those the stories from our plaintiffs to the floor to our New York committee members. Right, that's how we've been working together. I would say that I think in the several calls that I've been with our TPS, the plaintiff, he has grown so much compared to like how when we had just started knowing him. He has grown so much, and he is also organizing folks in California. This person is from California, so he's been growing these groups of TPS holders. He has added them in like group chats to inform them, to organize, mobilize, right? Whatever it is that we do in the direct action, or going to any meetings with senators or representatives. So that's the work that we've been creating for them, and that's how he has been leading. We also have Prarthana, who has done most of the work, and Narvada Chetri, who is our director of organizing, that have worked in terms of bringing folks together. So before the pandemic, before all of these happened that stopped us from traveling to different states, we had actually done a big sort of like event in California where Narvada Didi, we call her sister. So Narvada Didi and Pratana, they have gone there, and they have mobilized folks whenever we had a request for hearing from the decisions. Because these, just going back to like how lawsuit works, there's like several hearings that comes up within a period of time. I'm not exactly sure like how many months. We never know the time. But I think there was a time where they had to go and mobilize folks and bring more folks to California, because it was, I think, the first hearing that we had, and then that's how the work has been happening. I feel like the person who I've talked to, the plaintiff, he has been a really strong advocate. He is very outspoken. He is not scared. And he also educates his community to get involved, to mobilize, to organize, and that has been like just a great learning for us, even as organizers.
Yeah, I mean, one of the number one thing for organizers is that you're literally organizing everyone around you, right? And then they also start to organize the people around them, and that's how we make sure that people are informed, that they know what's happening, because power is in numbers, right? So I guess leading into that, can you tell us about how people can get involved in terms of protecting TPS holders, or just advocacy in general around TPS?
Yeah, sure. I mean, our general ways of right now, because we are in the pandemic, we've been doing a lot of petition signing. We recently had done a petition together with other TPS organizations, and it was a collective work. And we've been since then we've been doing petition signing. We have also been, as I mentioned earlier, educating senators, trying to push them to introduce the Dream and Promise Act in the Senate floor. We've been doing a lot of digital organizing, basically like in our Facebook, where we have most of our members, and other organizations have also like joined us with like doing Week of Action. We have been doing sharing stories digitally, all with all the graphics. We've done a virtual town halls that allowed TPS holders from all different countries to share their stories, and that has engaged more people within the social media. So anytime we do like social media campaigns, social media like digital organizing, just get involved. You can just join Adikar, and once you join our Adikar Facebook page, you can also see other organizations, because every time we have any online campaign that happens around TPS and DACA, we actually share within our groups and tag each other within the week of action. And so that's how you can also share and like us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have been doing a lot of tweeting for all of our senators that have not heard us. So that's another way you can engage with us. And also, last but not the least, if you are privileged, you can vote. Looking at all the issues, especially immigration, vote for the right candidate. Get informed, right? You need to be informed in order to vote. We can't just be like, okay, this person, I like his face, I'm going to vote. Not like that, but like look at the deeper issues that the candidate stands for, and then vote. A lot of folks like TPS holders, they can't vote. The only way you can support them is like if your friend or your neighbor, or somebody that works with you, right? They could be TPS holders, they could have DACA. So even if it is like, okay, I don't have issues to work on, but have their voices be their voices to vote, and use that privilege to bring more community power and everything together. So I would say those things.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely more than one way to get involved, right? And number one being staying informed and knowing what's happening around you. So again, I encourage folks to go and follow Adikar on Facebook or on Instagram or Twitter, as Mega mentioned. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. We also uplift a lot of the work that other organizations like Adikar are doing. But lastly, in terms of staying informed in order to know how to get involved, where can people find resources to stay up to date with everything that's happening with TPS?
So we have legal organizations. If you want to get legal advices, we have clinic.org. That organization has been working with us in terms of sharing a lot of great information materials that you need right away, right? Facebook, Adikar Facebook. We also have a National Day Labor Organizing Network that also brings a lot of the stories of TPS holders. There's TPS Alliance Facebook and TPS Alliance website that also gives like very up to date information. If you want to get information in Spanish languages, right? They are doing videos, and like they've been so creative. We've been doing a lot of like stories through our TPS holder. We might do another town hall or Know Your Rights. So That's how, we've been sharing. If you are in a different state, I would say clinic is the best to get information and legal information on that.
Yeah, and then in terms of people who maybe want to find some resources when it comes to TPS.
So TPS information is also very different. We have different. So, for instance, for Nepal, if you want to get more information on Nepal, we put it out, right? We have
Mhm.
TPS Alliance, as I said, for most of the countries that are in TPS Alliance are Honduras, El Salvador. So, if you want to get information on that, Sudan, Haiti, if you want to get information that they also bring out a lot of the updated information. We also have a lot of our partner organizations act. If you want to get information on Somalia, South Sudan, all of these countries, they also have a lot of information. So whenever we bring out information, it depends on the country that you need information. But I would say like
Mhm.
Clinic and Dolan has like more of a variety of like the general information that you need to know.
Yeah, so there's definitely at least a few places where people can go and find information so that they know what's currently happening. Well, thank you so much, Mega, for joining me. I know we have at least a few minutes to answer if we have any questions from our audience. I do want to remind folks that on Informed Immigrant, you can find a TPS FAQ guide in English and Spanish. We also have a few additional languages on there. So again, I encourage you to go on to informedimmigrant.com or inmigrantinformado.com. Um, yeah, so again, thank you so much for joining us. As I've mentioned before, this was a conversation that I was really looking forward to be able to provide for folks to know what's currently happening with TPS and especially how to get involved. As you mentioned, we're literally in the middle of a pandemic, so showing up physically is a little bit harder than usual. So even knowing how to get involved digitally is incredibly important. Um, so I guess we'll just give it another minute and see if we get some questions. If not, then we can wrap up. Um,
Yeah, and also I just want to add, like, for folks who, feel like they can't wait until like something comes up, like just consult with a good immigration attorney. You also have to be careful because with the immigration, I mean, within the Nepali community, I can speak on that. Like we have lawyers who can probably take, money for not giving you the right decisions, not giving you the right information, right? So you always have to work on that. You make sure that you are getting a right lawyer to help
mhm.
you through the immigration work. You cannot just, believe anyone that will be like, hey, yeah, I
Yes.
can help you, sort of thing. So we want to make sure that that is not the option. And I think in order to have like a right information from the lawyers, immigration attorney, do also consult like organizations that knows all these organizations. Like for us, we've been working with Legal Aid Society, we've been working with Take Root Justice. These are all legal services that are in New York who are working with us in TPS work, right? So, we know that if somebody does not have enough information and they don't know, they're not sure, usually we go to Legal Aid Services and Take Root Justice. So, depending on your state, look for those organizations that can refer you for a good consultation. Private attorneys also is an option, but just make sure that, you're not paying money just for nothing. That is a huge, huge, huge issue within our community. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely important to find, like you mentioned, an accredited lawyer or an organization near them that we know works with immigrants, because unfortunately, there are a lot of people that take advantage of the immigrant community. So again, encourage folks to find an accredited lawyer or an organization near them. You can find on Informed Immigrant a list of organizations that are friendly for immigrants. Again, you would go on to informedimmigrant.com or inmigrantinformado.com, and on there you can find organizations near you. So we did get a few questions, Mega. I think the first one is from Mr. Payne. It says, can TPS holders, can they join college for studies under TPS status?
I mean, we have had students who have done that. I believe you have to make sure. I mean, also looking at like which state you're from, you need to look into the state regulations on that as well. But most of the time, yes, you have ID, you have proof of address, you have a legal a work permit. I wouldn't say why not, but we have had students who have actually continued their education after they got TPS. They've continued their master's degree, PhDs after they had TPS. So why not? Yeah.
Okay, and then we have another question asking when the hearing date is, and they're confirming if it's on November 20th. Do you know when the next hearing date is? Because I
Sorry.
think I'm assuming they're wondering about the Ramos case, and they're probably thinking about appealing the case. I think I'm not sure if that's what they're wondering, but can you explain again what the next steps are in
Oh,
terms of?
yeah. So
Mhm.
the upcoming steps would be the litigators or the legal team would be requesting for a rehearing, which is also, I think, in the legal term, it's called en banc. And you have, like, we basically have 45 days to request for the rehearing process. I'm not sure of like the what dates, they will request for hearing and what dates we will know the decisions on the request. But there's also a way, we want to be strategic about adding the days, because sometimes if so, for instance, and this is just hypothetically talking, if we request for hearing on, let's say, like the 44th day, right, or 43rd day within those days. And if we don't get any decisions by a certain date, then there is a possibility that it could extend further from March, right? There could be like time added within that. So we've been, working within the legal team has been working very strategically on like how to do that, what the process is, so that we can also have more time in our hand rather than just thinking about March 2021.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mega. We have a question from Andrea. So we did not cover DACA during this session, but I do encourage you to go on to informedimmigrant.com, where you can see all of the latest updates with the Supreme Court case and the new memo. You'll be able to know everything that's been happening on there. But we have a little bit of time for the last question. Someone's asking like, what options do they have? Can you remind us again, like how TPS holders or even allies can get involved?
Yeah, so I had mentioned signing the petition. We can share that. We've been sharing that in our website, but we can share with you all also, so that you can share in your website with informed immigrants. Well, there's also another way to get like social media action. So, for instance, if you're from any organization, or as an all ally organization, you can uplift the stories that we share. So we usually do week of action. Right now we haven't done any, but in the past we have done week of action where we just tag organizations to uplift. There's also I can also share my email, meka@adikar.org. If you want to get any like letters or any information on like the upcoming events or anything that you want to be involved in. Yeah, I think those are the things. Also, go to like any organizations that's working with DACA or TPS. They have also information depending on which state you're in. They also have information around how to get involved. Like every state has different ways of organizing, right? I mean,
Mhm.
they're organizing TPS holders, but there's also like some of them are doing really like progressive and very, aggressive direct actions, right, in front of the Senate offices. Some of them have been doing voter engagement and adding like the issues of immigration within their materials. Some of the organizations that have actually like information on legal services that they can consult with. So those are the things that we've been working on. Like personally, I would say, like go to TPS Alliance, right? They have been doing the work a lot. Go to like our Adikar Facebook. You can also see other organizations within our Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. You can also get involved with a lot of, if you have a representative that has been like a great supporter of TPS. So for instance, Senator Van Hollen, he's been a great supporter for TPS. So if you want to go to his Facebook page or Twitter, we usually tag also information around that. So all the supporters who have been working with TPS and DACA recipients, that's how you can get involved. I wouldn't know the faith institutions because even like for Adikar, I don't think we have faith institutions within the New York, but there are also other organizations that have worked with faith institutions to bring more education and uplift the work that TPS and DACA holders are doing.
Yeah, thank you so much for reminding folks about ways that they can get involved to working towards protecting TPS holders. I know we are getting towards the very end of our session. I just want to thank you again very much. I do want to answer another last question that we got, just as a reminder for folks. Can you tell us again what the Ramos decision was and the countries that were impacted, and how the end date for the TPS program? Just because somebody's asking for clarification on why there's a March 2021 deadline, and then we can wrap up. Thanks again, Mega.
Thank you. Yeah, so Ramos' decision, the countries that are affected by that decision is Nicaragua, Sudan, Haiti, El Salvador, Nepal, and Honduras. And we have, so Nepal and Honduras have our own lawsuit, which is called Bhattarai versus Nielsen. And these other countries, Nicaragua, they have their own lawsuit, which is the Ramos versus Nielsen. And because Ramos versus Nielsen was the first lawsuit that filed before us, we have basically followed, the decisions on Ramos versus Nielsen. Whatever comes out, that's going to be like for us the same decision. That's how it worked, and that's why like all of these countries are like disconnected. And in terms of the dates, March 2021 is because after you get the decisions, like for instance, our decision was in September. It came out in September 21st, I believe, 2020 or 21st of this year. And that has given us the months, which is like a grace period. That's why it is extended to March 2021. Originally, we actually had, before all of these, like the decision came out, right? The recent development, like in September. Before that, our date, especially for Nepal and Honduras, we had a date until like Jan 2021. But because the decision came out in September, and we were actually expecting the decision would come out in August, but that didn't happen, and we were never informed that the decision will come out in August or September. It's always like Thursday. So if the decision came out today, we'll know like after like 10 o'clock or something like that, right after whatever decisions that the judges do, right? So we actually got to know on 21st, and then that's why the date is moved to like March of 2021. And as we move on, there will be like, I know that for a lot of TPS holders, there will be federal registry notice that will be issued by USCIS, right? And the month probably is like late 2020 or early 2021 to let us know that the date has been pushed to March 2021. So a lot of these information are very, like complicated and complex to understand. So, make sure that you are looking at the USCIS website as well to look at the federal registry notice for all these TPS holders, right? There's also, that website is also there in order for you to know, like federal registry, what are the documents that you would require in order to be protected until like March 2021. But if we request for a rehearing and the judges, from I believe 29 judges, if they say like, yes, we want to, go ahead and we're going to approve your request. If that happens, then our lawsuit fight will continue, and it will be similar to how it has been. And as we go on, we can share those information, because right now the legal team has been really working on requesting that rehearing from the judges.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mega, for reminding us what the recent developments are and just all of the changes, because I know it can get really confusing with just how much has been happening with the TPS program. So I do want to encourage folks again that, if you still have additional questions or if there's still information that wasn't answered for you, please follow Adikar on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Reach out to Mega. You can find resources on their platform, as well as you can go on to informedimmigrant.com, where you can find a TPS FAQ. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. There's just a variety of different places where you can really find resources to stay informed and again, feel empowered as a TPS holder, or show up for your community members if you're an ally. Well, again, Mega, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you. It's an extremely important conversation that we're having. So thank you again so much for joining us. I hope folks got some of their questions answered. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of them. But again, thank you everyone so much for following us. We will be having a Know Your Rights conversation next week on Wednesday on Instagram. So again, please go follow us. But again, thank you, Mega, so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. This is a great opportunity, and this is as the organizations are more aware, I think it brings more people to be engaged in the issue. So thank you for this opportunity. We love it. Thank you.
Thank you.